I'm Richard.
And I'm Gary, and these are our incredible stories. Hello and welcome back to all of our listeners from around the world and across the United States. We're happy to have you back with us again for some more incredible stories. And boy, do we have some incredible stories to share with you today. Before we get started, though, I want to say if you are listening for the first time, congratulations. You have found one of the best shows you could possibly listen to for incredible stories. And if you decide to hit that little subscribe button, you will be treated to some amazing stories each and every Friday. I'm telling you, it is the gift that gives all year long. So I hope you push that button, and I hope you will join us for more stories to come in the future. That being said, let's move on to our incredible story.
Yes, and we're heard on wherever podcasts are played, so you can get us on your favorite podcast provider.
That's right. If it's Spotify, Pandora, or Amazon Podcast, Apple Podcast, you name
Podbean.
it. Anywhere you want to listen to your podcast, chances are we're there.
We have you listening in from 30 different countries, which is wonderful.
And clearly, if you're listening to us now, you found us on one of those amazing sites.
Well, it's that time again. It's the first week of November, and in the United Kingdom, our listeners over there in the UK know why this week is very special. There's bonfires, there's fireworks, there's lots of celebrating that goes on, especially on November 5th, because it's Guy Fawkes Day.
Oh, is that the official name?
Yes, that's the official name of the November 5th celebration. But who in the world was Guy Fawkes anyways?
Well, I only know of Guy Fawkes because of the movie V for Vendetta.
Oh, and we'll get to that.
And the comic book. But up until then, I had no idea who the person was.
Because Guy Fawkes was a real person.
That he was.
But we have to go back to not this November 5th, 2022. We have to go back to November 5th, 1605. Whoa.
That's a little ways back.
That is 400 years back. Fawkes and a group of radical English Catholics tried to assassinate King James I by blowing up Parliament's House of Lords. And here's why. Catholicism in England was heavily repressed at that time under Queen Elizabeth I. She wasn't very happy when the Pope excommunicated her from the church in 1570. Some queens just didn't like being told what to do or what not to do, and so Elizabeth I was a little bent out of shape because the Pope had excommunicated her. So during her reign, she took her venom out on dozens of priests by putting them to death.
Ooh.
And Catholics couldn't legally celebrate Mass, and they couldn't be married according to their own rites. And so, as you can imagine, when she died in 1603, many Catholics in the United Kingdom were hoping that her son, King James I, when he took the throne, would be more tolerant of their religion.
I'm guessing he wasn't.
So it turns out he wasn't. In 1604, he actually condemned Catholicism as a superstition. Didn't call it a religion. It's a superstition. So English Catholics organized several failed conspiracies against both Elizabeth and James when James took over. And in 1603, like I say, a few priests and laymen hatched a plot to kidnap James. But believe it or not, they were turned in by some fellow Catholics, so that didn't go anywhere. Then in 1604, a handful of Catholic dissidents, including Guy Fawkes, Robert Catesby, Tom Wintour, Jack Wright, and Thomas Percy, they met at the Duke and Drake Inn in London, the Duke and Drake Inn, And Catesby proposed a plan to blow up the Houses of Parliament with gunpowder.
Oh, wow.
Gunpowder plot. Now, afterwards, all 5 men there at the Duck and Drake Inn swore an oath of secrecy on a prayer book.
Oh.
Later on, they'd get 8 other conspirators to join them, and this became known as the Gunpowder Plot. Now, Catesby was the ringleader, not Guy Fawkes. But for some reason or other, Fawkes has gotten most of the publicity over the past 400 years. And like I say, that's kind of strange because Catesby was the leader of this plot. Guy Fawkes was born in 1570, so that would make him about 34 years old at the time. He was born in York, England. And he, as a young man, he spent about a decade fighting for Spain against Protestant rebels in the Spanish-controlled Netherlands.
Really?
Yeah, and then he also personally petitioned the King of Spain for help to start an English rebellion against King James.
Huh.
Yeah, so maybe that's why we know it as Guy Fawkes Day, because here he is politicking at the highest international levels to unseat King James I. He was involved in more than just the gunpowder plot. So in 1605, he was calling himself by some aliases, I guess, to avoid detection. He called himself Guido rather than Guy.
Okay.
And he also used an alias called John Johnson. So Guy Fawkes called himself John Johnson for a while.
John Johnson.
And during the time he was John Johnson, he served as a caretaker of a cellar which was located just below the House of Lords in Parliament.
Really?
Yeah. And he and the other plotters leased that cellar, and they started to stockpile gunpowder there.
Really?
Yep. And under their plan, Fawkes would light a fuse. Maybe that's another reason why it's named after him. He would light the fuse on November 5th during the opening of a new session of Parliament. Now, who would be there to get blown sky high? Well, King James, his eldest son, the House of Lords, the House of Commons. They'd all be blown to kingdom come.
Ooh.
And after that happened, Fawkes would then escape by boat across the River Thames. And his fellow conspirators would then start an uprising in the English Midlands, kidnap James' daughter Elizabeth, and install her as a puppet queen and eventually marry her off to a Catholic.
That's an ambitious plan.
Yeah. Oh, history can be so crazy sometimes,
Can
it? Huh?
And
is
I thought
this
all the
wild or what?
I know. I thought all of the craziest was happening now. Who knew
Yeah,
it was
now
going on
and in
so
the
long?
United States, folks.
Right.
Crazy isn't unique to now in the United States. Listen to this from 400 years ago. This is crazy plus. Anyways, October 26th, which was, about a week before the plot was supposed to take place, the explosion, there was an anonymous letter.
Uh-oh.
Yep.
Somebody snitched.
Advising a Catholic sympathizer to avoid the opening of Parliament. And somehow or other, the letter made its way to the authorities, and they became aware of the existence of the plot. And to this day, no one really knows for sure who wrote the letter or really whether there was even a letter. Some people thought, well, maybe, it was the authorities had already known about the plot, and they used that as an excuse for knowing, but we don't know for sure. In any event, there was an official search party. They found Guy Fawkes skulking around in the cellar around midnight on November 4th. He had matches in his pocket, and he had 36 barrels of gunpowder stacked next to him.
Oh. Talk about being caught red-handed.
So he was immediately taken to prison. He was tortured by a special order of King James. And then soon after that, his co-conspirators were likewise arrested. I imagine he gave up their names under torture.
Oh, sure.
But 4 of them weren't arrested for one reason or another, including Catesby, the original leader of this. He died in a shootout with English troops.
Oh, wow.
But Fawkes and the surviving co-conspirators were all found guilty of high treason. They were sentenced to death in January 1606. And listen to this, Gary. They were hanged, drawed, and quartered. Do you know what that means?
No. What? Well, I know what the hanging part is, but what's drawed and quartered? Were they?
Yeah, I think isn't that where they're tied between two different horses or something, or two different wagons? And
and then they're pulled apart.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And quartering, I don't even want to go there. I can just imagine what that might be.
Well, 4 quarters make $1, and there's 4 limbs on a person. So right. I mean.
So, anyways, they came to a very painful, bloody end.
Sounds like
this wild plot that they had hatched and attempted to carry out. So, how in the world could something like this become a holiday with fireworks and all sorts of celebrations?
Well, I'm dying to find out.
Shortly after the plot was revealed, the Londoners they began lighting celebratory bonfires. And in January 1606, when the conspirators were executed, Parliament came out with an act that designated November 5th as a day of Thanksgiving.
Huh?
So that's why Guy Fawkes Day and Thanksgiving are celebrated in the same month. They both have a Thanksgiving theme. And for the people of England, the Thanksgiving was that Parliament didn't get blown up along with the royals and the government, and that they survived this plot.
So the Thanksgiving part is being grateful for the fact that Parliament survived.
Yes, and Guy Fawkes and the gunpowder plot failed.
Right. So, but is Guy Fawkes Day about the same thing, or is that different?
Yeah, it's about the same thing as they started there in 1606. It's a time to get together with your friends and family, set off fireworks, light bonfires, attend parades, and burn effigies of Guy Fawkes. And children traditionally would wheel their effigies around, demanding a penny for Guy, huh. And imploring the crowds to remember the 5th of November.
Isn't there a poem?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah. Now, you at the beginning of this podcast referred to something which I call a makeover for Guy Fawkes. So here we see he was a notorious traitor, but today he's looked at in some circles as a revolutionary hero.
Exactly.
And it's largely due to that graphic novel from the 1980s called V for Vendetta, and you were referring to the 2005 movie of the same name.
Yeah, by the Wachowskis.
Yeah, and the reason why we look at him as a national hero from these works is that in these works he was battling a future fascist government in Britain, right?
Right, but the character of V is different. In the book, it's not... The V character is inspired by Guy Fawkes, a real person. And his attempts, again, like you read, were to overthrow a corrupt government. But his name is V. Mm-hmm. And he was part of something, a group of children born into this world to be used as a tool, as super soldiers, I think it was, something along that line. Mm-hmm. And he resisted, and he turned to the government who created him to overthrow them so that nobody else would have to suffer the same kind of pain that he went through himself. And so he went to Guy Fawkes as inspiration for his character, and really is more like a Zorro type figure, a vigilante who wields, instead of a sword, daggers. And, the movie didn't get a whole lot of, acclaim, but it has, I would say it's one of those cult following type films where there's a group of people that really love that movie.
It's enjoyable to watch. Yeah. It's worth a watch.
We actually saw it together because it was one I wanted to see, and so you came along to watch it with me, and it was a while back. 'Cause I think I was either still in high school or in college, one of the two. But I enjoyed it. So I'm one of those people who really enjoyed the movie and thought it was interesting and liked the kind of mix of the the blending of fiction and fact together to tell this story that takes place in a kind of a depressing future, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and Guy Fawkes, since we have listeners in so many different countries, I'd like to spell that last name. It's Fawkes. Fawkes, Guy Fawkes. So, Gary, I think we can at this point say, remember the 5th of November, and to all of our friends and listeners throughout the United Kingdom, enjoy your Guy Fawkes Day.
Absolutely, absolutely. So that's going to wrap up this episode of Richard and Gary. And as of right now,
I'm Richard.
I'm Gary, and this was an incredible story. We hope you enjoyed it.
Loved it.
And like I said before, if you liked what you heard, go ahead and subscribe to our show. And if you think somebody else might enjoy these incredible stories, you can hit that share button as well, and you can share it on your social media, whether that's Facebook, Twitter, or whatever. Till next time.
Bye-bye.